Ramana Maharshi I am reading. But somehow, sir, I feel ultimately what Ramana Maharshi says, what Mr. Guha says, what UG says, ultimately they are all one, I feel.
That is what exactly the way you are functioning. I am functioning, she. But to use the language to communicate with the existing information bank, we have to exercise our power of imagination. There is very little choice as far as we are concerned. But whatever the reality that these Hindus have been talking from the beginning of time, called Asadoma Sabdhamaya, that the illusion has to break down. But the breaking down of illusion is a very difficult aspect, because there is what the center of the information bank, which what you know as yourself and identify me as that, is something that doesn't understand anything about it, because its movement is the movement that has access to the illusory world called the words, the sound and words and its meaning that is operating inside you. So now the aspect of that is it has to break down, that the whole collapse of this information structure has to break down, otherwise center is always going to be there. There is nothing you can do. That is something that you cannot process through a particular way, because anything that you process is always has a very powerful notion of keeping the information going. Anything that you exercise through your imagination. Imagination means your desire to know. Your desire to know is what is the result of desire to? Means you gather more information. What is the meaning of knowledge? Knowledge means you are gathering information. You are knowing more. You are trying to understand. What do you mean by understanding? Understanding is nothing but using your power of intellect to sort out things that is already there in the information bank and make a meaningful situation or meaningful ideas about the thing. But it never matches with the reality of your existence. It never. Therefore, there is always an imbalance since it's not matching. So you think that by moving or by gathering more information, you are going to be in a position to understand it better. Hindus have seen it very deeply. That's why they invented a term called Vedanta. That means it's the end of knowledge. The end of knowledge doesn't mean that you learned everything. It means that the necessity of the knowledge inside you has come to an end. So that cannot happen until and otherwise there is a collapse of the information structure. As long as this structure is there, the very nature of this structure is to make you move something so that you want to know, you want to find out, you want to, it's called search. That's the very nature of it. And what's the result of this is nothing but you become very clever, you can use your vocabulary very well to convince yourself first and others. It's not doing the job. And that is the problem. The problem is that the hope that you have is that if you do something, you will go somewhere. You will find yourself in a situation or a state that would match the state that they are describing.
Yes.
The description of the state is actually a very elusive objective, because how would you describe a state? You use basically images and thoughts. Thoughts are a machine through which we gather information. So it's always in that realm. The problem is that whatever you are thinking, it's always about something that already happened or something that you would like yourself to be in. And the life is a very complicated game. Through your thinking, what in life you are proposing is one of the million alternatives. There are so many things are involved with each other in life that our intellect and our information together is not good enough to produce a perfect situation where I know I will be in such and such position. That's kind of impossibility because the nature works in a different way. It does not have a future at all. And our mind, which is afraid to face a situation where it is totally unknown, cannot accept such a reality. So it creates a fictional state. And we, to solace ourselves, to get a footing on ourselves, to get rid of that fear or a situation where you completely do not know what is going to be, you also find yourself in the situation you accept something through a hope, like, okay, I'm fine, I'm doing something, at least I'm doing something good so that I know I will be in a situation where my problems will resolve, my conflict will resolve. It's actually the conflict is the most important thing of our fear. The conflict is nothing but what the Hindus call it samskara. Samskara is nothing but not the past lives. I'm sorry. It is from the childhood, whatever you are forced to go through creates a sustainable memory inside you. It is called impression. Because if somebody tells you a bad word when you are young, you have been made to believe that that's a bad word in the beginning. Then somebody said it and you are shaken. So through your body's impact, the impact of that word in your physical existence creates a very hard memory. It's very hard to forget it. That is actually the samskara, the impressions. And the result of all this impression is what you are carrying with yourself. And every action that you take place is nothing but a resultant of those samskaras. They are making you take particular steps. You're liking a particular caste, your favorite of some personality, or your liking of a particular religious icon, or whatever, or is actually is a result of those impressions. And you're liking, disliking everything. Until those things removes from you, and if somehow it begins to slither away from your brain, and only then you begin to realize how your existence, as you know yourself, functions very differently. So those impressions are the one that is creating a barrier between you and the nature. And this is nothing new. The Hindus have been researching on those things, the giants in thinking and in application, doing this for generations after generations. 500 generations before even they allowed people to write, because those days the writing was a blasphemy. You can't write the scripture. You have to just memorize it.
And you to be passed on to the disciples
To the
through
disciples.
years.
The gurus,
Patanjali,
the
all
gurus
those things.
used to go around all over the places to look for a guy who has interest, who has memory, who has good health, and a sense of musical taste. All four has to be there, and then they will go through these 14 years of constant practice to retain everything that Guru has. Then his Guru's job is over. He handed over the song, music and text and its meaning to etc. That is how the whole oral tradition of India came along. So it's not just 1 day, 2 days material, and in the process there are so many people came across of this kind of situation and wanted to experiment themselves. what part of reality is this, what is illusion, and they have done a lot of techniques. They have invented a lot of ways to find out how one can keep oneself away from constantly getting bombarded by the impressions. There are two things according to these, that you have a innate tendency and you have accumulated impressions. But they are together. Tendency is something.
Tendency, how do we get?
Tendency you get completely genetically. But you see, the genetics is one thing, but there is another thing that is it was not probably known that well. Our culture is embedded in language. Everything that a human being, you are not there in Mahabharata, but you can imagine. Because it is there in your language, in your text, in your books, everything is there. And what is the other thing? That is, your brain is already, through genetics, has created the power to pick up this enormous literature and get a meaningful association with itself. So there are two things which is carrying along from the beginning of time. One is the language and its meaning. It's the world of sound that creates a meaning inside you. The sound is already there, but the production of the sound and its understanding is what carrying through the genetics. Like a human baby could pick up those things, right? And if you notice how he is learning, everything he is trying to do it 100,000 times before his hand is good enough to pick up a food and put it in the mouth. His brain, hand, eyes and recognition of these things are going on in a scale that you can't even imagine. That's the marvelous thing that is going on inside that little fellow's body.
He is in a natural state. Yes. That is what I am always, because his movements and all so spontaneous.
Absolutely.
So but now I am trying to correlate natural state.
Yes. So you
because
see,
he doesn't think
where is he doing that? It's the whole body is wired through genetics. It's wired. This hand has to move 100,000 times before the brain circuit makes it a complete definite movement. Like now, even if he wants, he cannot do many things because the circuit is not perfect enough to let him do those things. But slowly it's developing, getting hard, solidified, and so it's a trial and error. So he's doing many things. How many times he's going to fall before he starts walking, you will have to see. That's how every learning process is like that. And the body is throwing out these things all the time because somehow it knows that it has to carry out those programming. Yeah. And so the thing that I always emphasize is that what is not known is the system has programs. Just the way the little boy, he has programs, it's just doing it. These programmings are already hardware inside and it's carrying out its activities.
That is what I had sent a mail. This programming, somehow I'm not able to still clarify.
Yeah.
Sir, you say programming is there.
Yeah.
That is genetically.
It's programmed.
Genetically.
Like, for example, when it was like a sperm and an egg, it's constantly carrying out those instructions so that a part of the body will, in the neural tube, will going to become a brain. The other part of the body, it's going to be slowly a point, then that point will be a lung, that other point will be liver, kidney, everything. It's spontaneously
so that
working.
Is physical programming.
All physical programming.
Physical programming.
Yes. And this physical programming also produces what you call is making us ready to take the world as he is going to be living in. Like his brain is going to be equipped to hear the sound and to carry out the instructions that is coming from outside, mother, father, sister, to make him identify the sound as an object that he will be needing to know.
But suppose some people are born deaf.
Yes. So what
is
happens?
the program?
The programming is that, see, since the many body means it's a very complex system. No complex system is perfect. It carries out some programming. At some stage, it can slip something. It could be because of the intervention. Intervention in the sense that, suppose if a woman is pregnant and she is a drug addict, that can affect the fetus. Or somebody who is born in an environment which is very polluted, has a lot of bad chemicals. So some of the programmings are going to be affected. So it's not an easy matter. It's an extremely complex carrying out. Suppose if you are given a calculation of your bank, which is so random, the guy who is supposed to take account has no idea whom he gave money, whom he got money from. It will be a messy job. So there are all instructions are carrying out by these enormous powerful system, but there are always a fault line.
That is by accident.
It's by accident
By
or
chance.
it's always chance. That's what I'm telling. It's always chance. But it is very robust. If you look at it, mostly, see why you have a skull, because very important things are going on inside which is going to control the body, which is covered hard. And also we have so much of filtering that the chemical normally doesn't go to the brain. It doesn't go. But we have invented now chemicals which goes to the brain. All the drugs that creates an ulterior state is actually changing the neurotransmitter in the brain.
That is because all of us cannot get that natural state which you and UG got.
No.
Somehow we want to experience that.
No, it's actually what happened is, it's not the getting or not getting. Whatever the 2 cents I can deliver, what I feel is that we all have this programming which is trying to straighten up things. Just like, for example, you have a very poor digestive system, and body is always trying to figure it out how it will create the proper gastric juice and get the proper food, and my thoughts are very important for the digestion,
Thoughts are also important for the digestion.
Extremely important, because somehow the brain center which has to work out properly from saliva secretion to the acid secretion in the stomach is somehow connected to the word processing also, the information processing. Like if
Sir,
I
but
get
thoughts are not, thought is a myth.
thought
Mind
is not
is
a
thought is your enemy.
yeah, thought is
There
your
are
enemy.
Thought does not exist.
No, thought does not exist in a different way. Thought means how you are informed. Say I have a bad news. Somebody in my family is not well. I live 100,000 kilometers away from home. How is I am going to affect? I don't see it. It's just the information. It's an information that goes into me, and I create a meaning. Out of that meaning, my body responds. I start crying. If you say thought is fiction, and UG says no such thing as thought, I don't believe him at all.
That is the confusion for me.
Yes, thought is your enemy in a sense. If you begin to understand how your brain is processing the information, suppose I got an information that I got $1 million, I'm very happy. I'm going out, buying things, doing things. So you see, it completely changed my situation, but it's just an information. It could be wrong. I didn't get the lottery. I'll be even sad. I'll already spend some money and came to know that I didn't get the lottery.
That is human, this one.
Yes.
That is genetics.
So the information that comes to us, which creates a meaningful situation that affects the body has a limited span. The problem is when it is not working properly, it has a continuous movement. The thought that I heard that I lost $5,000 is going to give me pain for a long time, which is actually coming on my way to function properly. Suppose something has already happened. Okay, it's done. I can't do anything about it. It's history. There is a programming which does these things in a sense that it relieves off the effect of thoughts and images and make it fall into a natural rhythm. Natural rhythm means you tell me a bad word, I respond to it, but it has no more effect when I walk out from it.
It squares off.
The brain throws out the chemicals which takes care of it. Suppose I got a cold bacteria, flu bacteria. If I have a fantastic immune system, my body is responding to that cold. It's going to give me some temperature, some coughing, but since my immune system is fantastic, it's going to finish it off. I walk out, be healthy again. So, if you think that UG was completely immune and unaffected by words and images, then you have not understood anything.
I know. Yuji himself has said, if you say you have understood, you are lying.
Not only that, how is
You
that?
are deceiving yourself.
How is that then he is sorry if you are sorry, he is happy if you are happy?
That is, as I understand,
Yes, tell me.
everything is one in the universe.
Yes.
Everything affects each other.
Okay.
So that is how it is affected.
But
He is
it
affected.
is affected. But life works in a very different way. Its local equilibrium is the most important equilibrium.
Locally.
Is the most important. When I am here, I am just here. My physical existence, what my eyes are seeing, what my ear is hearing, this is the most important
Is
equilibrium.
it the power of now?
It is, you can call it whichever way, but that is how the perception works. The reality of our existence has to function this way. Because if it is not so, I am facing something very dangerous, and if I am thinking something else, this life is going to end. It has to respond to the perceptive world first and foremost. Every single time, if there is a little boy, his physical health is the most important, imminent thing, all time. His physical safety. If it were not so, we wouldn't be paying that much of attention. The perceptive world, the world in its imminent local equilibrium is the most important thing. What is happening on the other side of the globe, whether there is a Raman Maharshi or a Uji, just doesn't matter to this little fellow. His physical existence, which is already working out from inside to make him or her a perfect human being, is working out without all those things. This is reality. This reality is the most important thing. And that's why I was telling you, because we are so tuned in our imaginative world that we literally want to live in fictionalized version of our existence. We give so much importance to the past images that you have no time to pay attention to the beauty of this perceptive world and what is going on inside you. You can exercise what you call this power of now, but the mind that we use, which thinks, has a mechanism that cannot cope up with the moment to moment. It cannot. It's a gimmick. However, our physical existence for itself, power of now is extremely important. The mind cannot function in power of now. It cannot. The mind, as soon as it moves, it has to work out a solution out of the past inputs that it has and will choose one of the alternatives that it thinks as future. So it quickly takes the past and narrows the present down and throws it into the future.
So there is a mind.
Mind is the only one that human beings are operating through.
That is thinking.
That is thinking. Without thinking, you cannot even love your own grandson. As you know the love is. There is other thing going on, like when that little fellow is hurt, you are hurt. That's a visceral eyes. Through these eyes, the body has created an impression in you. If your mother or grandmother, to some extent little less, are completely connected. That is the only love that is there. The imaginative love that we think is a fictionalized version of it. That is like you are powerless to not respond to this little fellow's problem. That's why it is there. The life is moving because of this, having this powerful surge of feelings to protect that little fellow, because your mother did it for you, our mother did it for you, that's why we are here. That also has a space and duration. The way you feel protecting this little fellow, if you continue that when he is big, it's neither good for you nor good for him. So everything, all the sensations we have, all the things we have, everything has a reason for its existence. But it has a time and space. The moment it is beyond that, it creates an unnecessary disturbance, and which becomes an enemy to something that was supposed to be its friend. All the activities that we carry out in our brain, all are having as a very perfect rhythm. That's the natural state, like the rhythm, the balance with the surroundings. If it functions accordingly, then there is no problem. It is the parallel processor, like I am very good and you are not. From the childhood we are so used to exercise that sense of good and bad that we are addicted to that. That is the sense of self that really is the core problem of the human being. That this sense of self is completely out of place. Completely out of place. It was necessary at one point, as I was telling you, we have to exercise our power of imagination to understand the language, to understand science, to understand art, literature, everything. We have to. Without those things, I cannot learn. My brain is not going to be equipped to communicate with other human beings. It is absolutely necessary. Similarly, those things, as it is growing inside our brain, it creates a sense of self. That I know this, I know that, I am very good at it. That also has a place. As you go on, growing up, if you don't have confidence on what you know, you will not be evaluated appropriately.
You will not be able to live in the world.
No. That is the most important thing, you see. Everything has a place, but then if the balance tips, like now what happened, at one point it was extremely necessary to have the sense of self. Now it has to fall in a rhythm where it will assist the way the physical body grows and creates a situation that obeys that. And that switches over. That what was necessary at one point for this physical body to come up and function appropriately, now is becoming its enemy. Now this sense of self begin to think that this is the owner of the body. And it has a power, because the sense of self came to know and gather a lot of knowledge through which it knows how to create harmful situation to itself and others. Knowingly, unknowingly. And it does all the time. And sometimes its momentum is so heavy that it just doesn't even know that it is constantly doing harmful thing to itself. all habits, all drugs, all eating, excessive eating, all food that we eat for pleasure has the exactly opposite thing that the palate was supposed to be there for. Everything is out of place. To me, what I feel is that our physical existence, our body, its deep chemistry and its organism, this organization that is going on from the beginning of time, has made it possible for itself to take care of itself, provided we give it a chance. It can strike the natural balance by itself, provided we learn how to be out of its way to function the way it wants to function. That is the reason all these sages and saints, centuries and centuries trying to discover how one can be out of its way to work for itself and by itself. All the invention of meditation is for that. To be they even created what you call the fourth state, Turiya. It's a state in which normally what we have is three different phases: being awake, being dreaming, and a dreamless sleep. Three. But then they discovered that this, for a modern society, these three states are not enough, because you don't have enough deep sleep to remove the impressions that is being carried out during your waking hours and rejuvenate the body, to clean it up, everything, and start from the beginning again every day morning like a fresh start. We don't know how to rest enough to use that way. And it's a very important aspect. If you don't do that, there are something that was supposed to grow will never grow because of the stress. Your stress is not being completely taken over. You don't get up in the morning as if you are a newborn baby. After some time, it's so off the cleaning mechanism, the thing that periodically takes care of its own health and rejuvenates itself, is so off that you walk with a heavy load on your head and shoulder, which is totally out of elusive activities of the information world.
So there is no Turiya fourth stage is not there?
They tried. There is fourth state in a state...
So you are in which state?
If I use the word of the scripture, what state I am in, I will do an injustice to the word and its meaning. I'm just borrowing some word. I'm just labeling it. You know what is labeling?
Labeling.
Yeah. I'm just labeling, to make myself feel little
but
good.
But words are there important?
Words are important for a communication purpose. Actually and factually, I don't know. That is the only thing I can honestly tell. If I close my eyes, if I begin to see what state I am in, the process through which the thought arises gets arrested. Because there, the recognition itself gets lost. The recognition is nothing but I have a retrievable memory bank through which I collect the word which I did not understand the meaning of it. I put a connotation of a meaning. Ramana Maharshi said something, I am imagining something, I put a meaning to it. Now I am trying to match something which is total hodgepodge.
But all this, of course my understanding, all this you are able to feel or recognize or whatever only because you, for how many years you studied?
Yeah. I did study,
Ramana Maharshi, Ramakrishna,
yes,
then Ramachandra Mission.
Yes, everything I did, but the problem is this. That what I studied, that what I imagined, that what I was trying to find myself in the state that I was imagining myself.
Yeah, that is there.
Okay, was kind of it's a self-satisfactory labeling, I call it. I sit for meditation, I have a myoclonic jerk, there are a lot of things happen. It's the properties of a human system. I have discovered that myself because I didn't give importance to those meanings of the terms. I wanted to read also biologically what happens as my consciousness goes from a awakening state to the sleeping state. What happens to brain and what happens to its connection to the different part of the body. I wanted to study that because that is what happens. We see it, and we name it through those languages that we have been reading it, the scriptures and all these things. And nothing really satisfied me. The problem is nothing satisfied because there was this demand to understand better, demand to know it more, demand to match my state as it was written by them. So I begin to falsify myself. Falsify myself means I want to neglect some of my pain by saying that I am in a painless state. My mental pain I want to ignore, means I am lying to myself. So if I am by myself, I am sitting myself, I want to be honest to myself, I want to ask myself, is it true? I feel, no, it is not true. I still have conflict. It's not the way they have been described. So obviously I am not in that state, if that state is true. If what they say is true, I am not in that state because I still find myself in a conflicting situation. So until I came to UG, I found myself in a very different situation. Nothing to do with all this description, nothing to do with all this matching of my physical behavior. It was totally something else. And that was so powerful that my idea about those states were just become completely valueless. That it was powerful for itself and by itself. So this surge of activities that was taking place inside the physical system was so immediate and vital that there was no space for me to sit down and imagine about the state and take down the notes of what I am in and how close I am in the fourth state or Turiya Theta. Those things became, because I realized at that time I was just playing in the fictional world. Through my exercising my imagination, I was creating a situation where I labeling myself to feel myself good that I have progressed, I have gone to such and such state, things like that. But the way things work is a very different story.
So now you do not have any conflict?
I have zero conflict. No conflict at all. That is because there is something that made it absolutely clear that it is impossible for my imaginative faculty to create a situation that I can call that I am in such and such situation. So in other words, every time I create a future, the system cancels it. Like it tells me somehow, it shakes me up from within and makes it impossible for me to think about the future as valid and truth situation. So it relieves me from that. So there are three things, very important things. That is really, I think I nailed it down in a way that it's not me nailed it down. What I discovered, what can happen, why people experience those things in that kind of crisis, that kind of meditative state, this kind of... I also slept for 3 days non-stop, no sense, nothing. I was not there. I didn't know. Time has gone. I was sitting there for meditation, and I was imploded. Means gone. I was a vegetable. Somebody knocked my door on the day. So this kind of thing happens, and then I begin to realize that the brain begins to work in a different way. It's not working in the same way. Our world, the world that is around us, interacting with us through very important physical systems, like I'm seeing you, and the medium through which I see you is light. And my brain is the one which decides what it should see, what its color, what its shape, and how much of it is important to itself, how much of it is unimportant. This brain already knows these things for millions and millions of years that it's growing, already know these things. But because of our social development, what we have is a parallel world called mind, that we can keep our memory and act accordingly. In that world, what we are doing is we are creating a meaningful world through images that I can recollect. I close my eyes, I think about my wife, I can see her face, things like that, which is not real. You see, it's our faculty. That imaginative world, I made it real. I'm not supposed to see other than anything, other than you here. That's it. That's in my visual field. The most important thing is color, shape, size, everything. All other things are dead. It's of no importance. But we don't function that way. Our memory is always pushing things from within to merge, to remove this perceptive reality into a kind of mismatch situation. So it's kind of a disturbance. And for brain to function this way, there has to be a radical change in the brain organism. And in that organism, this shaking up of the memories creates a very strange kind of light. It's like there is no object, there is no subject. What is there is just light. And I feel that there are people who have experienced that kind of thing, and they call it enlightenment. It's just a property of the brain. The similar activity happens when it comes to the word. This is about images. The light comes, images. Like you are there, my perceptive world has to see you, and my images are already there, which matches this. So this is this image making problem. And in another world, there is something very important, which is sound.
Hello?
The sound
Hello?
is collected through our ear,
Yes, hi.
goes to the brain, and it deciphers the meaning.
Hi.
Okay? So when these meanings are
Okay,
beginning to go away
9:30.
as a long-term effect,
Okay, hold on one sec, just a sec.
as a long-term effect is
You're boarding
also
1 hour?
creates a very peculiar
Yeah, we'll call you
experience
back.
in the brain.
Right now, we'll call you
And
back
what you
for-
hear
what time
is the pure sound. There is no meaning attached to it. Neither a listener nor something that you listen. What remains is that this beating of the drums by the sound is not interpreted anything. What you hear is the pure sound. And they thought it's anahat or Vankar and all these things. But this is a real phenomenon in the brain. No big deal. Also there is another thing, what you call is the sense of smell.
Bye-bye.
Because through which we are interacting our immediate surroundings. The sense of smell is very important. And even that gets detached from this deep memory space. It doesn't have that. And that time you get a lot of smell, good, bad, various different things, in absence of things. It's just working out the brain. And the brain processes these things very well. And then you begin to see that you are functioning very differently. Functioning in a different way because I am not doing anything. I, as Guha, is not using his intellect to carry out things. That doesn't mean that I forgot everything. That doesn't mean that I don't think anything. Doesn't mean that at all. Without using my thought, I cannot communicate with you. It's impossible. Even if Yuji comes here right now and challenge, I will challenge him the same thing. Otherwise, I will tell you have no knowledge of the definition of thought at all. Because it is the process, it's the activity of the brain that allows me to retrieve from my retrievable memory bank a few words and images and making it a viable thing for us to communicate. So without using thought, you cannot communicate. What is not there is a self driven thinking mechanism which is out of control. Without you, there is no desire for me to think. It is you who is making me talk. When you are not there, I am not talking. And there is nothing going on. So,
Okay, but whatever you are telling, it is from your memory.
exactly, without my knowledge, I cannot say one English word. How can anyone know anybody's name without
No, but
memory?
universal mind, you are one with the universe. I mean, that is in your
The
state.
definition.
So, I mean, some people have that gift I have read, that is enlightened people. If they want anything, they can get that information. That means automatically that will come to them.
It is
It
not.
must be with you also, sir.
It is not possible because if I ask Ramana Maharshi to solve my quantum mechanics problem, he cannot. No saint can do this. These are all activity that we achieve in a particular field of knowledge. Okay? If I ask Yuji to draw like Picasso, no way. Or sing like Purandar Dasa, no way.
No, but knowledge.
What else
No,
is there?
knowledge.
What is knowledge? Tell me, madam. Clear. It is the activity. It is our capacity to perform certain things certain way. What do I want? I want to know how is my daughter who is living in the other side of the planet. Okay. People work for thousands of years to find out, to get the capacity to find that again. Now I have scientists have made it easy. There is a cell phone. Ring, ring, ring. She will tell my head is aching.
Clairaudience, clairvoyance.
Why do I work hard? Scientists have already solved that problem altogether. See, that is not the problem. The problem is somewhere else. The problem is you, as you know yourself, through the process of coming to know of what you are, has a lot of component in it, what we call is desire.
Yeah, desire.
So these desires are making what we call as the human mind a perpetual movement. Without this movement, the desire cannot fulfill. If it was a very separate case, a total illusory case, then it would have been very easy for human being to trash this out. But it has also a component of this movement is very essential for us to function.
Yeah.
It has become extremely hard to discriminate between the desire that is really addressing your well-being and the desire which is not. You see, this is the problem.
Conflict.
This is the conflict. How do I know that what I want is not addressing my well-being? Maybe my desire to have a lot of money can be good, but it can be something else. I don't know. I will always tell, okay, I have money, that's good. But that may not be the solution of the problem that you are facing.
Yes.
The problem may be deep down somewhere else. You see, now we have separate problems and we have instrument to solve separate problems. But what you and me, we are all the time, as we are growing up in our intellectual environment, we had only one instrument, which is an intellectual solution. Thinking and finding out the viable path or a practice through which I can hit the solution. So this is a very important discovery of Yuji as far as I am concerned, that he clearly has seen from the foundation that that is not the instrument to address the problem that you are really facing. The problem that you are facing as a social entity can use this power of intellect to overcome the solution as they are creating a need for you. Like you need to have a house because you grew up in an atmosphere from the childhood generations wise. Suddenly if you are landed in a forest, you will be just gone. So you need a house. So how you will get the house? Where you will get it? How you will make it? Money. or capacity to make the other. All these problems can be solved with the instrument that you have, is the power of thinking and imagination. But there may be some other problem that you have that you don't know, creating a very peculiar situation for yourself, and you think that, okay, maybe that's the problem. So you have identified the problem, but the instrument that you are using to solve the problem is not the instrument to solve that problem. It's a totally different mechanism altogether. To take out the water from a tank, I cannot take a shore. I cannot have the air by shore. There are different, I need to have a totally different equipment to address that problem, if that is the problem. So for human mind, the problem that is created out of a conflict, out of a desire, out of a situation that is not giving you the harmony and the mental peace you think that you should have, cannot be addressed by this power of intellect, power of thinking, power of imagination. And the moment you are pondering about anything, all you use is the power of imagination, which you exercise through thought. So thought is not the instrument to solve the problem of conflict. Knowledge is not the material to deposit to create this problem, solution.
Is the turia stage when you sleep or while you're awake?
When you are awake. When you sleep, you go to deep sleep. When you are awake, yet you are not, you kept in a way that there is no impression is forming. That's the current state of Turiya. Like you are awake, yet nothing is creating any impression in you.
That means you're not creating the knowledge.
You are not acquiring any knowledge. You are not wanting anything. Your wanting has completely ceased.
You are at peace with whatever is there.
It's like you just finished your food. You feel like eating again? Like that. So everything is taken. You have no pain. You have no problem. But human mind doesn't work. Even though you don't have a problem, you create your problem to make this thing going. Because we are so used to that momentum. If that is somehow slows down, you are afraid. You are afraid to lose it all. It's a very unusual sensation in the physical system.
Okay, sir, you are telling that there is no, thinking is not the instrument.
No.
Which is the instrument?
See, this question that you are asking will only get anything which is as a result of thinking only. Yeah. So that is one's discovery. What is your calling? What is your, whatever you can adapt, whatever your system resonates with, if it makes the whole mechanism slow down.
Mechanism slow down.
Yeah, the mechanism like the desire, wanting to know, wanting to find out, wanting to understand the state, wanting to discover something. All this mechanism is actually a result of that intellectual movement. And the result of that intellectual movement and the outcome of this intellectual movement is nothing but gathering further information. If the information would have solved your conflict, we Indians, we have so much of good material. Thousands and thousands of problems people should be free from all this conflict. It is our wrong identification. They already know that Vedanta, it has to strike inside you. The knowledge creates a knower.
Knowledge creates?
A knower. The one who knows.
Knower.
Okay? Without knowledge there is no knower. So, the knower can only exist through its knowledge. And if this knowledge is the one that you are proud of, that you are dealing with, that you are exercising with, it creates inside you an authority. This authority is the authority which is standing on the way for you to be harmonious with the nature and its surrounding. So that has to come to an end. So all the authority that the knowledge creates inside you, that makes you feel good or bad, that I know, so I'm good, I feel good, I don't know, I'm miserable. All this undulation that goes on inside us has to break down. The knowledge has completely ended its inroads inside you as an authoritative entity which can exercise its authority on this physical system. As long as that is there, you are not emancipated. There is a boundary, solid boundary of a social authority. Social authority can exercise its authority only through knowledge and ideas. If I don't have any idea or knowledge about a person who is Ramana Maharshi or Yuji or whatever, there is no feelings here. It is the end of those knowledge that I have created through Yuji, through Ramakrishna, through all this. When it ends, this body has freed itself from those impressions altogether once and for all. It has no value by itself and itself. I am not using knowledge to make myself feel good.
But that stage, we cannot achieve it by our effort. It has to happen by itself.
That's all. I learned very little from you. I knew everything. Even before I came to it. What I didn't know is that he had the tremendous power to put all my focus into myself. It is a fact, that what you have is an enormous system that is working for millions and millions of years. And you are a result of that. We don't have that confidence, and we don't have people that give you that confidence that there is nothing outside human being. It's inside you, it's operating. You, as you know yourself, is coming on the way for it to express itself. The way, that's the natural state. Like, it has everything. What's nature? Nature is a tree standing there for thousands of years. It has everything. You have everything. As I was telling you, the discovery is that if my immune system fails, there's no power this medicine can make you healthy anymore. And the physical body has the program. If the conditions are met, it will create a perfect balance by itself for its own power. Same way, thinking is not a different mechanism. It is a specific property to take care of the specific need of the organism. And so, it also has a power to sort out the thoughts which are useful to itself, which are not. And when it sorts out, it throws out what is not important to itself. And that is what happens when you begin to trust your own system, that it has everything that it is required for it to function appropriately. It has everything. But that doesn't mean that you will be like somebody. You see? You are unique. That's Yuji's constant hammering. Everybody, you are unique. Because nobody will match your genetic lineage, neither anybody will match the cultural lineage. Cultural lineage means the way your forefathers' brain was wired by the then culture and created lineage, and you are carrying out that lineage. Nobody is in that. So different. The way you will perceive a reality, the way you will imagine things, the way things are sorting out in your brain is so unique that it's unimaginably unique. I mean, it is like that. So, obviously, your desire to be like somebody is a false notion that we make. It is like as if we are making cars in an assembly line. We, as I know myself, have nothing to do with my creation, with my physical body. I didn't do a damn thing to this physical body. It's because of this physical body's working I stay there as I know myself. I'm just a squatter. As I know myself has very little power. But we have been taught through this sense of self and the wrong notion that I am the controller of the body. I am the controller of the body in all destructive ways. I can set myself on fire. I can drink bad things. I can take poison. All this knowledge gave me the power of destruction. I can kill somebody. I can kill myself. What I don't know is how to create a perfect equilibrium in myself and in others. In the history of humanity, there is not one person you can tell that have come to a place where they are ready to give up everything in their life. Only then something works.
Yeah, that is what.
If you want one thing,
You want one thing, And that also, I have a very observation about the way things are, like even in the brain circuitry and everything, the passionate activity, what it does, in fact, if you study Patanjali Yoga Sutra, you will see that this one channel movement of the mind is the most important thing for a human success story.
Yes.
In any field.
In any field.
Destruction and the nature of destruction is a big impediment. So to have one direction, you need a tremendous amount of passion. That is what the passion is, nothing but producing it. They used to call it tapas. Means the one who creates this tapas is the process called tapasya. It's nothing, it's just one and one only, And so the entire circuit of the brain, everything else is unimportant. Everything else, it's just one movement in one direction. Nothing is there. So when somebody pursues like that, the system becomes a very different system. And when that system shakes up completely, and that is the only time I think there's the beginning of this deep natural order that the nature has intended to for every single species.
That is what we
can
should try
begin
for.
to exercise itself. And it has to be self-sustained, self-satisfactory, I observe a lot of people, a lot of writing and a lot of things, and I feel that most people are stuck in a narcissistic loop. Narcissistic loop means suddenly they started thinking that he came to know of everything.
No.
It's a narcissistic loop, I call it. It's the self-aggrandizement at its best. They can't
I have a firm conviction that you have really tried. Ultimately, you have reached this stage. All of them, actually, for that matter.
But it's not the trying which got me there.
But then that trying, that result, which it will make everything else to be
unimportant.
forgotten.
That is that.
That is what is there.
But what really happened is not my doing.
Yeah.
That's not my doing.
Because of your effort,
I used to ask Yuji, it was in your hand, and he says, believe me, it is not my hand. He was a tremendously integrated, honest individual. But I knew there was something in him that was just focusing even further. It's like a lens, I had this rays which has no power. He put the lens and just focused it in one place and just exploded everything.
Oh, you see, it's not in your hand, it's not in my hand.
Yeah, he said that.
Yeah.
But I feel that he has that power to turn my mental movement into a place where
Something.
it turn itself towards itself, because he was constantly giving so much of courage.
to you.
Every time he talks, you feel that your gut has got some strength of 10 elephants, It's like such power.
Only you were feeling it.
I don't know.
Only talk about yourself.
That's the only thing I can know. What else can I know? So this imagination that this is the myth-making structure of the mind which creates this beautiful justification that we all sit down on a platter and say, that's beautiful. None of these things. So that is also another thing that he removed that disillusion. Remove that disillusion means every time he attack this sense of disillusion that our mind always wants to anchor, he strikes it so hard that all this temple, god, goddesses becomes a complete irrelevant entity. No, because once that authority of language, authority of knowledge is smashed inside, even a word, God, means nothing to most people. It's just word. It has no meaning. So it had a lot more meaning to him, the reality, truth, enlightenment, God or self-realization. All this word was a lot of things for him, and he found himself nowhere out of all this sincerity. And when people use it for just loose terms, it's just a play,
Everybody cannot speak like that. To God, that is. Whoever it is.
Myself alive when somebody is interested. It's the truth.
No, but as you said, sir, see, now I've started feeling that my dedication or my interest is not so intense and so one-pointed. That only when it becomes like that we can hope or expect something to.
The thing is that there are many things that we don't know. Maybe this system is knocking from inside. To me, it's a system's desire to find an appropriate alignment for itself. That's the natural state.
Yes.
So that it functions powerfully and wouldn't respond to something that is not important and will pay full attention to something that is important. That's its nature. That's the only way it can change the wiring inside, and you will not run after false things. And that is the actual addressing the inner peace, if there is any. It is already there, as you always say. It's already there. Your demand to create an artificial peace and harmony that they were writing about, you are already depriving yourself from the inner harmony that it is trying to establish. If there is an emancipation, it is only this, that it strikes the balance from inside and controlling, as they say. The control has gone on to the mother nature, not on to the socially influenced subject that we think is the controller. They are not, it's not. In other words, 98% of our functions, we also know, is not governed by you and my
yes.
wish.
Breathing, for example.
Exactly. All the activities of the entire thing, everything that is going on, if you are not interfering, it does its best. It's only our interference that makes it problematic. Similarly, the field of thinking that creates a long-term imbalance can be taken care of the physical body if you allow it to function. How you would allow it to function? That's the problem. So that question of how is only every time there is a movement in any direction, if it finds itself that it is hitting a dead end, it stops, it slows down. Suppose I ask you a question which has no answer. What do? How long can you think? You say one time, I don't know. It stops. That movement to such comes down, and that is the time that it can begin to work out on its own. And that ordering mechanism is there. Your system is ready to trigger, enact a process which will ultimately overpower the subject's fictitious faith that it is the controller. It's not. So when that takes over by your innate power of the organism itself, you will find yourself in a very different situation. That which used to bother you so much, you will identify it's a figment of your imagination, along with everything else that you to give so much value, so much importance, are part of the controlling mechanism that we have been tied ourselves with. It's all the value system. Value system creates conflicting demands in us, and often they're useless. I came here for 40 days of meditation camp from America.
Concluded is, people who are after such institutions, going abroad, tasted the real reality. See, whoever you can.
Once I told Yuji, I was so excited. I was in a big spiritual organization before that.
Ramachandra Mission.
Big. And I said, I have so many friends, just desperately looking for what I am going through. I told Yuji, it's just out of this world. Yuji looked at me and says, it doesn't work that way. You can't convince one single soul.
How does it work then?
No, that he has something.
Oh, so you cannot convince anybody to,
like,
unless they see it.
Unless something strikes
Them.
inside them,
Like somebody telling you or nothing.
You have to know it yourself.
Yeah, something has to just mysteriously work out and put you in a situation that you yourself don't know how it all. Excessive concern about the future and the pleasure movement. These two are the most important offsetting parameter for the individual human beings that creates a sense of sorrow in us. And the sense of happiness that we know of is what we hope that something is going to be fulfilled, or when I think that something is being fulfilled. Only that's the only happiness that we know of. What other happiness that you know? Either pleasure movement or in the thinking world or imagining world, that when you think that something is getting fulfilled or something will be fulfilled. These are the two conditions for happiness. So naturally something is not aligning. That's why we constantly want to be happy. Desire to be happy is completely a burden, as Yuji says. It's a tremendous burden on this physical organism. As soon as that is not there, the desire is there, and you are not taking any action, you are bored. What to do now? Immediately the unusual sensation inside you will be considered as boredom, and you will want to run out of that and do something. In fact, that may be a good thing, that it wants to come to that kind of harmonious existence when you have no demand. Besides $13,000.
Yeah. Don't know, Guru.
I'm sorry, I don't want to put you in the focus.
It's okay. Already am.
You are smart, you know how to handle.
Did I?
Yeah, of course.
Alright. What do I want? I really don't know. I wish I did. If I did, I would tell you.
Seriously, it's a big problem. Often, if somebody really... If you ask yourself this one single question, deep down, sincerely, without any falsification, without any prejudice to yourself, say nobody is there, just what is that I really want? What is that? What is the source of my dissatisfaction? What is that causing this sense of drive that wants to appease something that I really don't know? Me, more important than who am I is to understand what is that movement of the earth spontaneously go through. What's the source of it? Where is it misaligned that it's demanding something? Well, you will just realize you are not responsible. All your response systems are like kind of automation. It's been you're made to believe certain things and you believe that way.
Will we get any answers if we are silent in silence?
Any answer that you get is not outside the framework of your knowledge.
Yes.
So that means it is not your answer. The answer is already laid down by them. can you discover, why I was so kind of affected by this guy is the depth that he was working out these things that it looked like he was really cornered. He asked those questions nobody asks themselves. Can I want something and tell this is my want? Every single want has been forced upon me. What I want is what you want me to want. You means collective.
Yeah.
Culture, exactly. That's the Samaskriti. And from there we get samskara. Without that samskara and conditioning, there is no want that the human mind can conceive. Even the concept of God has been handed over to us as a solution for everything. So we were made to believe that once you get that, all problems are solved, all mushkilas. And so obviously you want to go for that. At least why should I cut one leaf, one tree, one branch? I want to remove the whole tree from the foundation if I get God. That was the whole foundation, what they call muskil asan.
But sir, that is what you have got now.
Oh, come on.
Yes, now all your problems have gone. You have got everything that you wanted.
All your
That is
problems
what
gone.
they were calling it as God. The only thing is you are not calling it as God.
The problems are never going to go. What is gone is that I don't seek any help from anywhere to solve the problem that I face. And often it is not even my solution. And I have completely given up trying to create a future and prepare myself like that. I don't. So what happens is everything becomes an immediate. And I feel that, say I am here now, she wants something, I have some 5 different, so I put all these things in my head. And then something comes out, okay, let us do that. If it works, it works. If it does not work, I have no frustration.
And that is what. Not wanting anything means no frustration.
Yes, not a particular outcome, because I haven't set a particular outcome as that I have to get. If I don't, I'll be sad. No, I accept the way things are happening. I do according whatever at best I can do. And then I don't leave it on God or anything like that. I have no concept in my head like that. People say that God talks to them and things like that. I know very well that it is your knowledge and your movement in the information bank is what is coming out, and you give it a name as somebody said that. God said that. I didn't. It's not like that. You can't invent something that you have never heard, never known, never imagined. It has to be there. I can't say a thing that I have never heard, never known. How can I? It's all, whatever is there, that comes out. So, it's not that I found anything, is not it. But I have no doubt about the fact that this physical existence has answer for everything that is necessary for me to find an answer. If I cannot find an answer, it is not necessary. That is foundational. I will not invent something. If I can't see something, that means this physical system does not require to see that thing for its own existence. So somebody says that you don't know these things. I have no problem with that. Absolutely none whatsoever. How much can you know? You know how many subjects.
These days the information that is hitting us from all over is too much.
Too much means you will feel yourself in a swamp.
Yes.
You're completely going like a quicksand inside. The information is going to just succumb you. It's just, and people love that. They're so bored that without not only power, if you can exercise that power and get your money, I'm free, I'm fine, I'm very happy. It is not that. You just waste your time and energy by looking at the internet hours and hours. Useless.
And then they go and spit it out and show as if they know everything. Just
Boredom. I don't know what is boredom. Luna always asks me, suppose you are lonely, what are you going to do? You are lonely, you're sad, nobody is coming. I said, that concept doesn't exist as far as I am concerned. Of course, I then said, if you really can be all alone by yourself, this is not a criterion. And you will never be lonely. That's the whole point. It is always, if you don't have any question, if you don't have any demand for any answer, you will find yourself in a very peculiar situation. Others are asking you questions. Really, you will see.
Yes.
That's what exactly, I used to wonder, what this guy, I have thousands of questions spontaneously going on in my head, and this guy sitting there, he says nothing. If I don't open my mouth, he says nothing. Really, nothing.
Oh, totally passive.
Total.
You have to bring him out.
You engage him,
He'll
You
sit
go
in
there,
silence
even if you
forever.
don't talk, your very presence is just pushing things out from him, because your very existence is nothing but questions. The Hindus were always looking for the sense of reality. The very first thing, is just that that's the one that keeps you in the dark, the illusion. It's the sense of reality is the primary importance of the perceptive world, and that this life itself is immortal. It changes its shape and form. You become a part of the totality of the life. You gathered everything that you have from the nutrition, from the programming of this genetic code and everything together, and it will go back to the Mother Nature. It's a spontaneous recycling process. It's not very convincing thing as far as the information center is concerned, but it is a reality that you cannot challenge.
But it's the same culture which created God in the best of forms and shapes.
So there is some, that is always the problem that for example, when this is something that I normally don't say, you are going through a very, very close process which is eliminating the sense of social conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
You experience something spectacular. Very different things comes into your vision. You truly see God right in front of you, but they are created by our faculty of imagination. So that you don't understand at that time. It gives you such a high.
Absolutely.
That you completely get stuck with that. So that's nothing to do with the reality of our existence. The mind is never pleased by the reality of our existence. We cannot. We just don't want. And so what happens, out of these experiences, you experience something very fundamental that the society has created a momentum about: the faith, the belief, the dependence, all these things they create. And you come face to face with those kind of images, face to face. And then what happens is that there is a danger of accepting that as real. It is actually a part of our imaginative faculty that's playing at its best. It's a part of that imaginative faculty that is playing games with us. So what happens is that this creates a further problem. This phenomena is so private and has so different connotation that one can use that to control others and create a mess for themselves and others. So what happens, say, suddenly in my thinking world, I saw something, I hear something, I feel something for somebody, and I say, okay, so there is something like soul or this or kind of godly qualities that you can communicate with each other. And I, without knowing it very deep down, the fundamental thing, because it came in my experiencing structure, I think it is valid and truth and reality, so I dish it out, and somebody sees that it's a very handy tool to use it for his benefit, and he can derive a situation where he can control other people, can make them do what he wants them to do. If somebody knows my weaknesses and strength, he knows my vulnerability. So he is in a position to use my vulnerability as a camouflage to use me. That is the problem. Problem is not whether there is a soul or God or not. If you are sincere, you will see the mechanism very well deep down. But the problem is when someone who doesn't understand this very well deep down can use it as a kind of, word, just boi lekha, it's written in the book, so you can use them, and happily you control a lot of people, use their power and knowledge to whatever you want. That is the problem. The problem is not the experience. And what you experience, if you are very sincere, if you really want to figure it out, you will see the nature of these experiences are also in the field of imagination. Mm-hmm. It is not the reality of our physical existence that we function in the space of life.
Do everybody get these kind of experiences?
It's a nature. Your imaginative world is tied out with all these images. You can see a God, but you will not see a God that you have never heard of.
Yeah.
I have seen Krishna, Ganesh and things like that.
Hey, how does he look?
Baby. Yuji told I am that.
There you
go.
Yeah. That is the image making faculty that we have, is creating all these mischiefs. Out of our intentionality, if I really want to talk to Ganesh so sincerely for years and years, if I meditate and do tapasya, he is going to come and talk to me. But that is created out of my own imagination. And when something like that happens, I completely flip. I create a temple, I make a big things, everybody goes there, puts it. So, you see what happens. And then all the priests are happily exploiting you for the rest of your life. Not knowing what really happened. Tarpar?
I was more sad was I was in Bangalore, Mysore.
That is a very...
That is what.
And that was a very funny thing that, when I didn't meet J. Krishnamurti. I always used to read him. But I never had the urge to meet him, because what happened is that I had no idea about this thing. So because I read the book and I was in a position to know what my question would be answered by him. I knew that well. Anything I asked, and I exactly knew what he would answer me. So there was no desire for me to go there, because I exactly know the question answer mechanism. But I had no desire that this frustration out of this, I know all the answers, but it's not working. I don't feel the way he explained about the great mind, or always I found myself in a state of petty demand.
Yeah, it is too vague. Even if you go on reading, nothing will enter your...
No, it will not bring about a solution. That's the whole problem. The problem is you will know all the answers, but that is not making anything work here, unless you say, okay, I know all the answers, that means I have no problem. That's fake.